Planning your first trip to China can feel overwhelming. It's a huge country and many things work differently. But traveling to China is not as hard as you might think. Hi, I'm Linglong. I've been teaching Chinese for years and have led small group tours through China. In this video, I'll show you what to prepare before you go, how things work once you arrive, what to expect from people, and the best route for your first trip. There's no need to take notes because I've also put together a free China travel guide with all the info and resources I mentioned in this video for you. Now, let's get started. The first question to consider is, do you need a visa to travel to China? Right now, travelers from around 50 countries can visit China visa-free for up to 30 days. So you may not need a visa at all. Even if your country isn't on that list, you may still qualify for China's 240-hour visa-free transit policy, which allows eligible travelers to stay up to 10 days without a visa, as long as your travel route qualifies. If neither visa-free options work for you, applying for a tourist visa is not that complicated. For US citizens, China offers a 10-year multiple entry tourist visa. That means you just need to apply once to get the visa, and then you can use the same visa to travel to China over the next 10 years. It's a really good deal. And here's a useful tip. If the paperwork feels overwhelming or you need help preparing and submitting the application, check your local Chinese supermarket or Chinatown. You can often find a travel or visa agency nearby that can help with the application for a reasonable fee. Visa policies can change, so make sure you check the most up-to-date official information before you travel. If you want to visit China, don't let the visa stop you. Next, internet. A lot of people worry that once they arrive in China, they won't be able to use apps like Google, YouTube, or Instagram. It's a real problem, but easy to solve. I mean, I live in China and you're watching me on YouTube right now. So clearly, there are ways to stay connected. For a short trip, the easiest option is to use international roaming. You can first check what your current carrier offers. If it's not available or is too expensive, I recommend getting a travel eSIM. Many travel eSIMs route your data outside mainland China, so you can bypass the firewall and keep using your usual apps without a VPN. Just make sure your phone supports eSIMs before you buy it. If you're staying longer and plan to use a local Chinese SIM card or Wi-Fi, then you'll need a VPN to bypass internet restrictions. I've linked my eSIM and VPN recommendations below. Make sure you set them up before you arrive in China. Once you're connected, which apps do you need? Instead of giving you a long list, here are 4 must-have apps I recommend. First, WeChat is the messaging app everyone uses in China, so it's really useful if you want to connect with local people. Hi, 我可以加你微信吗？好呀。But it's not just a messaging app. It also has WeChat Pay and lots of built-in mini programs. Once you link your bank card, you can use it for almost everything. Book a ride with Didi, take the bus or subway, and order and pay at restaurants. Second, Alipay. Some of my students found it easier to set up than WeChat. It's widely used for payment and also have mini programs for transportation, flight and train tickets, shared bikes, and many other services. Thanks to these built-in mini programs, these 2 apps can cover most of what you need in China. I recommend setting up both, so if one doesn't work, you'll have a backup. Third, for maps, use AMap Global instead of Google Maps. It's a local app, so its navigation is much more accurate in China. Finally, Trip.com is useful for booking hotels, flights and trains, attraction tickets, and tours. Another big concern is payment. Well, you don't need to worry about carrying large amounts of cash here because China is a cashless society. Once you have WeChat and Alipay linked to your bank card, you can pay easily by showing your QR code for them to scan or scan their QR code to pay. That's it. And it's not just in shopping malls and restaurants. It's everywhere. I'm not joking. I've even seen beggars wearing QR codes around their necks. It's still a good idea to carry a little cash and your physical bank card as a backup. You can withdraw cash with Visa or MasterCards at many ATMs and use them at malls. but smaller shops may not accept them. And while we're on this topic, I've got good news for you. You don't need to tip in China. One thing I hated about traveling in the US was seeing another 20% added to my bills. In China, tipping isn't really required or expected. In everyday restaurants, cafes, or taxis, the price you see is the price you pay. That said, tipping is more common in the tourism industry, especially for private guides and drivers. If you're happy with their service, you can certainly leave a tip to show your appreciation, but it's still optional. So, to sum up, before your trip, check your visa requirements, set up internet access, essential apps, and payment methods. You can even practice how to quickly find and show your payment QR codes. These small preparations will make your life much easier once you land. China is a huge country, but unlike in the US, renting a car isn't the best option for foreign visitors. Foreign driver's license can't be used directly in mainland China, and getting permission to drive requires extra paperwork. But the good news is, China is built for car-free travel, and there are many convenient ways to get around. For longer distances, you can fly or take the high-speed train. Flying is useful when you're traveling between major cities that are far apart. One quick tip, if you're taking a domestic flight, check your power bank for a clear CCC mark before you go. Since June 2025, power banks without this mark aren't allowed on domestic flights and may be taken away at airport security. But not every city has an airport, so taking the train is often more practical. This is one area where China feels very different from the US. China has a highly developed rail network connecting most cities, so we are very used to traveling by train. And trains are actually a great way to travel. One of my American students told me that she preferred taking the train in China because train stations are often easier to get to than airports. You can enjoy the scenery along the way, chat with other passengers, and even share snacks with them. The journey itself became part of the travel experience. Within cities, you also have plenty of options. Public transportation like subway and buses is very affordable. Booking a ride with Didi is also easy and usually much cheaper than many Western cities. You'll also find shared bikes everywhere. These services are all available through mini programs inside WeChat or Alipay, so you won't need a separate app for everything. When you travel with us, transportation within China is arranged for you, including airport pickup, private transfers within each city, high-speed trains, and domestic flights. Everything is booked in advance, so you can travel comfortably and focus on enjoying the trip. Okay. Now, for one of the best parts of visiting China, the food. Before you visit, you should know that Chinese food isn't just one cuisine. China is so big that every region has its own specialties, cooking styles, and flavors. That variety is one of the most exciting parts of the trip. But when you don't recognize half the dishes on the menu, it can also feel a little overwhelming. So whenever you visit a new city, it's worth checking which local dishes are famous there. For example, Beijing, Xi'an, Chengdu, Shanghai. To find a restaurant, you can use a map to check nearby options, ratings, and reviews. One thing I love about restaurants in China is that menus usually have pictures. This is actually one of my biggest complaints when I travel abroad. Why are there no pictures? QR code ordering is super common in China. You can simply scan the QR code on the table, look through the pictures, choose whatever looks good, and place the order directly on your phone. If you're ordering from a paper menu, you can simply point at a dish and say, 我要这个. If you have allergies or other dietary restrictions, I strongly recommend preparing a written note in Chinese before your trip. Save it clearly on your phone so you can show it to the restaurant staff, because these phrases can literally save your life. 我对过敏我不能吃这是素的吗? Replace the blank with the ingredients you need to avoid. And when you don't know what to order, ask, 你有什么推荐吗? 这里的特色菜是什么? I've included these useful phrases in my free China travel guide, so you can save them on your phone or print them out before your trip. Here's another cultural tip. In China, it's perfectly normal to call out 服务员 to get waiters' attention. It's not considered rude. In fact, if you're too shy to call out, the staff may not realize that you need help. And you don't have to be adventurous at every meal. Major Chinese cities also have lots of Western food options. So when you need a break from Chinese food, you can always find something familiar. On our tour, 3 meals a day are included. You don't have to worry about what to order or whether you're missing out on the best dishes, because we carefully choose restaurants so you can try the local specialties in every city we visit. Now, let's talk about something everyone is secretly wondering about. What are the toilets like? Today, let's check out China's public toilets. This is a 公厕, public bathroom, in a park near where I live. When you walk in, you can see signs like this on each door. This one, obviously, is a 蹲厕, squat toilet. And this one is what y'all want, 马桶, a Western toilet. So yes, China does have Western toilets. And you can usually find seated toilets in airports, train stations, hotels, shopping malls, major tourist attractions, and people's homes. But I'll be honest, squat toilets are still common in public restrooms, especially in older facilities and less touristy areas. So knowing how to use one is definitely helpful. My biggest tip is to always carry tissues and hand sanitizers, because toilet paper and soap are not always guaranteed. So toilet situation may be a little different from what you've used to, but as long as you come prepared, it's really not a big problem. One of the biggest things holding people back from visiting China is the language barrier. But the truth is, not knowing Chinese doesn't mean you can't travel around China. At airports, train stations, and major tourist attractions, you'll find English signs to help you navigate. The main apps you'll use in China are all available in English. Translation tools like Apple Translate are also very helpful. You can use voice translation for conversations and camera translation for signs and menus. It's a good idea to download an offline translation pack before your trip, just in case your internet isn't working. In big cities such as Beijing and Shanghai, you'll also find people who speak English. And trust me, Chinese people are usually very willing to help when they see a confused foreigner. So don't be afraid to ask. Another practical tip is to save both the English and Chinese names and addresses of your hotel and places you plan to visit. So when you need help, you can simply show it to a driver or someone nearby. I want to be honest though, while you can travel around without speaking Chinese, knowing the language, even just a little, will definitely make the experience more personal and much more fun. You don't have to be fluent, and your pronunciation doesn't need to be perfect. But people will appreciate the effort and often be more excited to talk to you. So don't let the language barrier hold you back. Once you're here, you'll find ways to communicate. On our tour, it's okay if you don't speak Chinese. As your tour leader, I'll be with you throughout the trip to help with communication and explain cultural differences. But if you're up for it, I've also created fun daily language missions to help you practice Chinese in real-life situations. The people you meet may end up being one of the most unforgettable parts of your trip. After visiting China, many of my students tell me the same thing. They didn't expect Chinese people to be so warm and welcoming. If someone sees you looking confused, they may come over and ask if you need help. And even if they don't speak English, they will still try their best. Maybe hospitality is just in our DNA. There's a famous saying by Confucius, 有朋自远方来，不亦乐乎. You'll often experience that sense of hospitality in China. People may offer you tea, share food with you, or simply be excited that you've chosen to visit their country. But you should also be prepared for the other side of that hospitality, curiosity. People may look at you, try to start a conversation, ask to take a photo with you, or ask personal questions such as 你多大了呀?你结婚了吗? Most of the time, they're not trying to make you uncomfortable. They're simply curious. But if you don't want to take a photo or answer a question, it's perfectly fine to say no or just play the confused foreigner and pretend you don't understand. Because of the cultural differences, some visitors worry they'll accidentally say or do something offensive. Honestly, you don't need to be too nervous about that. People understand that you're visiting from another country and won't expect you to know every custom. As long as you're polite and respectful, you'll be fine. I believe people who choose to visit China are already open-minded and willing to learn. When something feels unfamiliar or strange, try to see it as part of the experience, an opportunity to understand the culture better. After all, that's part of why we travel, right? Okay, now that you have a better idea of what traveling in China is like, you are almost ready. There's just one final question. Where should you go? China is huge, and you could spend months exploring it. So for a first trip, your goal is not to see everything. It's to choose a route that gives you a good introduction to the country. If you have about 10 days, I would recommend Beijing, Xi'an, Chengdu, and Shanghai. Together, these 4 cities show you 4 very different sides of China. Its empirical history, ancient heritage, relaxed local life, and the energy of modern China. First stop, Beijing. As China's capital, this is where you'll see some of the country's most iconic landmarks, and it's the best place to begin understanding the country's history, culture, and identity. Next stop, Xi'an, one of China's ancient capitals. The terracotta warriors, the ancient city wall, and the atmosphere of the old capital make ancient China more tangible. Then head to Chengdu. With pandas, hot pot, tea houses, and a slower pace of life, Chengdu shows you a softer, more relaxed side of China. Finally, end your trip in Shanghai. You've probably seen this futuristic skyline before. And yes, this is Shanghai, one of China's most modern, fast-moving, and international cities. You can take what you've learned from this video and plan the trip yourself, but if it's your first time and you'd rather not to figure out everything alone, you can join me on this 10-day classic China tour through Beijing, Xi'an, Chengdu, and Shanghai. Because it's a small group, I can really get to know everyone and be there when you need help. I'll travel with you throughout the journey, not just as a tour leader, but as your Chinese teacher, cultural bridge, and local friend. We've taken care of everything. The hotels, 3 meals a day, transportation within China, tickets to attractions and activities, and English-speaking local guides. So you can simply focus on enjoying the trip. If China has been on your list, this might be the trip for you. Check out the details at linglongmandarin.com. And if you know anyone who's planning their first trip to China, feel free to share this video with them. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. I'll see you next time.
1, 2, 3， 中国，我来了！
冰淇淋。还有冰淇淋，干杯 ！Oh my god! Say hi.
Oh, the Canadian can swim.
American George Clooney. Snacking.
Go. I say 冰淇淋 you say yum 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 yum. No. It's not goodbye, it's see you later.
It's see you later.